Welcome to Behind the Audition Podcast with your host, Curt Hilton. Listen in on interviews with voiceovers, filmmakers, producers, animators, and much more. Curt, a voice actor himself, will give insider tips to the business, talk with guests about how they got into the business, and be sure to stay tuned to the end of the podcast when he challenges his guests with a pop-up audition. Now it's time for Behind the Audition Podcast. Here's Curt Hilton.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Audition Podcast. On this episode, I spoke to Duke Nukem himself, Jon St John. We talked how he went from radio to the voice acting world. He shared some great stories how it all began. We talked about his amazing work and much more. If you want advice how to make it in this crazy world of voice acting, then sit back and enjoy another episode of Behind the Audition Podcast. All right, welcome to the show, the one, the only Jon St John. How are you doing?
Hey, thank God there's only one of me. I don't think the world could handle a second Jon St John.
I'm so excited you're on the show. Before we get things going, how are things at with the weather and everything in San Diego?
Oh, well, I know the rest of the country the last week or so has been going through blizzards and all that stuff. So I'm not going to rub it in, but it's sunny and 72 again today.
Oh, I'm so jealous. My wife and I had our honeymoon there at Coronado Island by Hotel Del. So thank you for joining us. And, you know, we were talking before the show. You're from the North Carolina area, Raleigh-Durham area where I'm at. So I'm
actually born in Southern California, but I grew up my teenage years. Yes. Should I call them my formidable year? I don't know what the expression is. When I was a teenager, I lived in North Carolina, about where you are.
That is awesome. I wanted to talk about that, you know, starting out in the radio days. How was that? How was radio back in that time?
You know, it was fun. It was fascinating. It was exciting. It was the 1970s, the mid 70s when I first got on the air at 14 years old. And very few rules except, maintaining the transmitter and never saying any words that shouldn't be said on the radio. And dead air, never allowed, not even a second of dead air. It was exciting. It was fun. And I was very fortunate to be in a small town, Jacksonville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Is where I got my start. And back then, a teenager from junior high school could walk into a radio station and say, "Oh, I'd like to have a job on the radio." And as soon as you get through puberty and your voice drops and you sound like this, they'll hire you.
I was in radio for a little bit, and I tell you, that's probably one of the hardest jobs to do. And I did have a program director one time. I was filling in for somebody. I went to dead air, and I heard her scream like 4 offices over. That is like the worst thing you could do to a program director.
Yeah. And, me and a bunch of my radio buddies who did radio for, 40, 50 years, still to this day have that nightmare where you're sitting behind the mic in the studio at the console, and the song is fading out, and you have nothing prepared and nothing to say, and the impending dead air is going to happen, and then you wake up in a cold sweat. To this day, I have that dream.
Oh my gosh. And so your change from radio to voice actor, how was that transition? Tell us about, how you got into voice acting.
For me, it was a natural progression, in addition to being a radio personality and doing character voices for morning shows and such. I was also a production director, which meant, I was in charge of making all of the commercials for the station or a group of radio stations. And that meant having to use a different voice as often as possible, different read styles, different voice styles, so that it didn't sound like, a commercial break of 5 commercials, all with my voice back to back. So that training early on in changing my voice made it very easy for me to transition to voice acting when Lonnie Manella, who lives here in San Diego and was a top casting director back in the day, came into my studio one day to do an automobile dealer ad. And while setting up her microphone and setting the levels, she's doing all these crazy, wacky voices. And I thought, well, I'm a show off. I'm going to do the same thing. And I started doing all these crazy, wacky voices. And she turned to me and went, "Wow, you've got really good range and a number of vocal styles. Would you consider acting in video games?" And at that time, 1995, I was like, acting in video games? What are you talking about? She said, well, they're going to start putting voice dialogue in games, and we have this game called Duke Nukem 3D that you might be just right for. Absolutely. And lo and behold, I auditioned right there for her, and then she got George Broussard on the line from Texas, from 3D Realms, and we hit it off and landed the gig, and boom, everything just snowballed after that.
That is so cool. And with that character, I'm 45, so that was my time when Duke Nukem came out, and he had the language and the look and now that I'm actually hearing the voice and seeing the person, this is amazing. And how was it then recording a voice for video games back then? Because now it's literally we can record from home, send it to the studio.
Right.
How was it being in that studio? What was the process like? Were you looking at a character? Was it moving? How was that process?
Sure, they showed me some artwork, which today I don't like to look at artwork for characters when I'm auditioning or when I have a role that I've landed, because it puts me in a different mindset that I'm kind of weird. Unlike other voice actors, I don't want to see the artwork because then I get a voice in my head that I can't get rid of. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But back then, yeah, they showed me some artwork, and it was the most comfortable recording setting there could be because it was recorded in my production studio at KCLX, a radio station in San Diego. And it was just comfortable for me. I'm just listening to George Broussard on the phone in my headphones, and he's telling me what sounds he wants, and Lonnie is sitting next to me in the studio. And it was like being at home. It was a very relaxed, easy environment because it was the studio I worked in every single day.
That is cool because, when you hear that voice, that voice is probably hard to duplicate. So when you thought of Duke Nukem's voice, what were you thinking of? Like, what made you think that voice?
Oh, well, here's how the process went. Originally, I think George Broussard was a big fan of Charles Bronson because now that wasn't the character he had in mind for Duke. It was just the voice styling. He threw that out at one point in the audition. I went, Charles Bronson kind of sounds like this, kind of a tough guy. And he goes, no, that's not it. And then Lonnie said, think of Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry and do that line where, do you think you're lucky, punk, whatever. And I went, so you got to wonder, do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? And George went, that's the right attitude and the right sound, but keep in mind that this Duke Nukem character is roided out and he's huge. So, and Lonnie said, well, then bring it down an octave. And I went, do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? And George stopped me right there and said, that's it. Don't forget what you're doing. That's the voice we want. You're hired.
That is awesome. And, with that voice too, when he goes into the different rooms, he has that charisma, and it's just so funny. I guess you have to play the game, but do you mess with people with that voice? Because that voice is so awesome. Do you like go up to people at like the grocery store or whatever? I mean, you can't really now, but I mean, back in the day, do you do that?
Best story I can tell you is Christmas time when my youngest daughter wanted to buy her brother a video game in, this just goes back a few years to about 2005 or 6. And she said, Daddy, can we go over to GameStop? I want to find a video game for Brad for Christmas. I said, oh, okay. And this was, I know, it was 2012. It was just a little while after Duke Nukem Forever had come out. I said, yeah, let's go on into the GameStop across the street over there by the mall. So we go on in, and I'm looking around at all the signage for Duke Nukem Forever because it was on sale at the time, and so they still had a bunch of standees and posters and stuff around. And one of the guys behind the counter goes, sir, can I help you with anything? And I'm like, no, I'm just checking out your signage for Duke Nukem Forever. Oh, are you a fan? I went, no, I'm Duke. And his eyes got big. And he goes, what? And I went, yeah, I do the voice of Duke Nukem. And this is not something I usually talk about in public. I don't tell people that I'm the voice of Duke. I don't, I don't get anything out of it. My friends certainly do, though. Every time they introduce me, they go, this is John. He's Duke Nukem. Anyway, he goes, really? And I went, yeah, that's what I do. And I told him some of the other characters I did, too, that he recognized. And he kind of freaked out. And the next thing I know, he picks up the phone and he dials something. And I guess he's calling the guys in the back of the store because the door opens at the back of the store and 3 more nerds come running out going, oh, my God, Duke Nukem. And so I signed some autographs and stuff like that. But I've done that. I've gone through drive-thrus at fast food joints and ordered as Duke Nukem when I know there's some 20-year-old guy with a headset on taking orders. I'll go, yeah, I want a number 2 combo, but no onions. They get a kick out of that. So do I.
Oh my gosh. And I also saw you on the online Star Trek series. How is that different from the Duke Nukem thing? Like, was it just because the recording, or did you look at those characters? Like, I know you said you don't like looking at them, but did they make you look at those characters and think of a voice for them as well?
Actually, Lonnie Manella cast me in that one too, and she knows that I prefer not to see the artwork, so
Nice.
I don't believe I ever got those. I didn't know what Ambassador Bavat of the Klingon Empire looked like until after I'd voiced the character, and then I saw some artwork. But that's always that's a nice job to do too. I do it right here from one of my studios. I have 3 studios in my house. This one's obviously my bedroom, because it's so quiet in here, and this room is like underground. So it's nice because, again, I'm in my home environment. I think the whole time I've done Star Trek Online, every single session has been from one of my home studios and not, I didn't have to travel anywhere. And it's just so nice and comfortable to be able to record in my environment. As far as the voices for those characters go, we dial them in right before the recording session. We'll get on the line and Lonnie will say, okay, this is going to be a human male character, about the age of 35, and he has kind of a smooth, no raspy sound voice. So I'll start talking more like this. And is this too young? No, that's about right. Just relax it a little bit. And I'll bring it down and go, okay, do I sound like a 35-year-old speaking now? And okay, that's the voice we're going to do for this one. And then, of course, when it's Klingons, you always talk as though there's something in your mouth. Like Bavat is, I'm a Klingon and kaplach, or whatever they say.
Yeah.
Right? It's always the clenched jaw kind of thing. Kind of the way I did the original Duke Nukem in the 3D game. They never let me unclench my teeth. Everything was like this, which got old after a while as an actor,
Wow, that's cool. And as far as studios nowadays, do you think there'll be a transition back to studios once this is hopefully normal soon, or do you think it's going to be voice actors like yourself just recording it from home and more convenient?
Well, I can tell you that there are SAG-AFTRA approved studios around Los Angeles, a lot of them that are operating again. But we're always currently given the choice between recording at home, and of course you have to have the proper equipment. You have to have the right, like this is a Neumann TLM 103. Something equivalent to this or better, and there aren't many better than this mic. But you have to have the right equipment. You have to show them your layout and tell them what gear you're using. You can't EQ or compress the microphone or anything. They want it as clean as possible, a clean signal, and they'll allow us to work from our home studios. Now, I'm thinking not just because of the pandemic, but because it's ecologically more sound to not drive to a studio. Why burn the gas? If everybody's set up and has, like, Source Connect is what we're required to have. I don't know if you're familiar with that program. Okay, so Source Connect is, real-time audio from me to the studio where they actually record it at their end, not at my end. They don't have to wait for me to send audio to them. Wow. And they hear every pop and click and mouth noise at their end clearly. Like, directing over the telephone, you can't tell if somebody's popped a pee. You can't hear that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
But through Source Connect, they can hear because it's very high quality, real time, very little lag in the signal. So I think that in the future, we're going to all be recording from our home studios, except for those people who are, I don't want to say technically inept. That sounds mean. But not everybody has the technical know-how to dial in a studio. I was an engineer as well as a DJ for many years in radio. So I've got the advantage of having the technical know-how. But a lot of people don't. So there are those who are going to go back to recording studios. But I think, again, like I said, it's more ecologically responsible not to have us drive to studios. Everybody should be recording from home.
Do you prefer working from home, or do you miss the camaraderie of your team at the studio, or do you like working at home?
Both. I like working at home because I can sit here in my underwear or my bathrobe, or even in the nude at times. Sorry for the mental picture.
It's all right.
But I've done that. I've recorded commercials in just my boxer shorts. But I miss seeing people and being in the studio because you probably know enough about me to know I'm an attention whore.
It's okay. It's okay.
I like the spotlight. And when I go into a studio to record with other people, yeah, I can show off for them. And I think it enhances my performance even more because I'm trying to be the best I can be in front of these people, where when I'm at home, it's a much more relaxed environment. And, I still take the job seriously, but you don't feel that same excitement as when you're with a group of people working together.
That's good points. Being on social media, I'll make some shenanigan content, but I always feel like you got to show yourself, get out there. You got to be a little bit narcissistic to kind of show people what you can do. TikTok is becoming pretty big for those in the voice acting game. It's very odd to me. I mean, if you know me, I'm a goofball. I get crazy. I do, I talk to Lonnie on the phone. It's, how she is and everything. She's awesome. But
oh yeah,
I learned from her. I learned from people like Mark Dotson. Thick skin is needed in this business. And I talk about it probably every show, but you have to get out there and show your skills to people out there and kind of be embarrassed and kind of hear the feedback. You know what I mean? How is that for you on social media? Do you ever get any posts out there that people push back at you at all, or?
Oh, hell yeah. I'm just now, as of like 3 or 4 days ago, taking a break from politics completely for the next 2 years.
Okay.
I'm very vocal politically on my personal pages, like on Facebook. Not my fan page, but on my personal page. And I do get a lot of pushback. I was attacked by on Twitter a few months back, which was quite a harrowing experience when you have people coming after you, calling you all kinds of inappropriate things, saying that you're this or that, things that I am clearly not as a parent. I'm not even going to go into the detail. But yeah, there's pushback from people on social media. So I try to keep it as light as I can, especially now. Like I said, I've given up posting about politics, at least until the next election cycle 2 years from now. And then I'll go hardcore again.
Well, with politics and social media, I know between that and, saying what you really feel can get somebody and, get you in trouble. But, at the same time, it's hard. It's hard to put something out there without getting any pushback. You could be the most positive person and somebody's going to post something negative. So I was always curious about, people like yourself who've been in this industry for a long time. And I see a lot of people that try to be positive, but still there are those out there who like to be negative, which is, it's time for a change. Let's all be positive. Let's help each other out. In this voiceover industry, everybody's so, helpful to one another. So I guess my question to you would be, what do you recommend for those getting into this world of voice acting now? What would you tell them with the pushback, social media, and what you've learned? What advice would you give to them?
I guess the best advice I could give would be to hit and run. And what I mean by that is if you're going to make a post on social media that might be political in nature or an opinion that you express that a lot of people don't agree with, then make your post and then do not read responses. Hit and run. My oldest daughter was a professional cosplayer and had a huge following a few years back. And she made the mistake of reading responses on Instagram and Twitter and people just tearing her apart for her, for any reason. Just the haters are going to hate. Right. And it was really getting her down. And I said, sweetheart, take it from somebody who's gone through this for many years. Don't read people's comments. Just hit and run. Make your post and go away. She goes, but I want to interact with them. I said, I know, I understand. I get it. I do too. But you have to have a fan page where you post these things and don't look at comments. On your personal page, sure, get into fights with people if you want to. If you want to really belabor a point and argue with somebody. But don't take them to heart. People are going to hate. And her followers were mostly young women, teenage girls, and they're the meanest of all. I said, you have the toughest base to deal with because they're just mean. They're just mean-spirited and they're taking out whatever their frustrations are on you. So hit and run. Make your post. Don't come back to read it.
Wow. And so with the future and how everything's transitioning, what's coming out that you can talk about, that you can tell us what's coming out for yourself that you can talk
Well,
about?
as far as
It's hard to
video
ask.
games, yeah, as far as games go, NDAs mean there's two that I'm working on right now that I may not speak about.
Okay.
I can tell you that I'm still doing new content for Star Trek Online on a fairly regular basis. I do have two things that are non-video game related that I would love to tell you about. Actually,
Absolutely.
they're both video game related, but they're not games I'm working on.
Perfect.
The first one is within the next month, you're going to see me as the face of Apogee Entertainment. You may recall Apogee was the company that started Duke Nukem 3D way back when. And Apogee is developing a bunch of new games, and they're going to have weekly updates about all kinds of crazy things, what games they're doing, behind the scenes, cheat codes, dad jokes, anything you can imagine about their games. I'm going to be the guy who's presenting it every week on behalf of Apogee Entertainment. They used to be Apogee Software. Now they're Apogee Entertainment as they're growing. So I'm excited about that. It's going to be fun to actually represent a company that's made so many great games over the years. And also I have a cruise con. You know, I do convention appearances all the time. I have been for many years. And a few years ago, I got a wild hair up my ass and decided that I wanted to have a convention, but I didn't want it to be like every other fan convention where you're, crammed into a building with all these other people in a hotel and blah, 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 blah. I wanted mine to be on a cruise line. So I contacted Royal Caribbean because I think they're the best, in my opinion. And we're going on year 3 of the King Kong cruise, which we had to delay it this year. Technically, let's see, what's the date today? Oh, yeah. We would be going on the cruise right now if I hadn't had to delay it a year. So I decided to postpone King Kong Cruise 2021 because of the pandemic. I don't feel it's safe enough yet for anybody to be traveling, let alone be on a cruise ship, because they get such a bad reputation for that, which is, not really accurate. But anyway, we've moved it to 2022. It'll be February 28th, I believe, is the first day of the cruise. It's a week-long cruise. I have DC Douglas coming along, Wes Johnson. I've got the husband and wife team of Richard Epcar and Ellen Stern Epcar. He's the Joker. So I've got some high quality voice actor buddies coming along. And the great thing about the King Kong cruise is this is the way I set it up from the beginning. You don't go to panels and watch us speak alone, and then the voice actors disappear to their rooms or to a bar and you don't see them again. No, we go kayaking together. We go snorkeling together. We're climbing the rock wall. We're playing putt-putt golf drunk. Drunken mini golf, I think, is one of the best.
That is awesome.
And the fans are actually doing this with the voice actors, with the celebrities. So it's an unusual fan convention where you actually get hands-on with the guests, and it's just so much fun. And it's a week long. It's actually 4 nights, a Monday through Friday, and cabins start at, the internal cabins without an ocean view. It starts at about $380 for the whole week, and that includes all of your food. Our badge prices are very reasonable, and you can upgrade to an adventure badge that automatically gets you, snorkeling with me or kayaking with DC Douglas, that kind of thing.
Cool.
And that's what I'm most excited about. I know it's more than a year away from our next event, but it's the most important thing to me. The King Kong cruise is so much fun, and interacting with fans in this way is just the best.
That is awesome. That sounds super exciting. I think we just bought a couple inflatable kayaks for our house. During the summertime when the pandemic was we're out there every weekend doing the kayaks. That is so much fun. That sounds like a blast. It's time for some fun. It's time for the audition challenge. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Bring on the challenge, baby.
All right. So I sent, I go in the chat here. If it would send here we go. In the chat, I sent you a script, and it's going to be like for a movie trailer. It's something fun, and I know what kind of voice you're going to use this for, but I think you'll have a blast. And whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
I've got to put my hand up to my ear. In a world. Oh, it doesn't say that. Okay, it says, he's back. You know who I mean. And he wants revenge. Duke won't take no for an answer. Critics agree. This is the movie to see. Who Ate My Leftovers? Coming soon. Rated D for delicious.
It's so funny when I write that copy. It's, I would like when I was in radio, I had to write copy for the ads and all that stuff. And it was so repetitive, but this kind of stuff is awesome. So before we go, I'm so excited to hear what words of inspiration would you give to people like myself who love what you do and give back to the community? What words of other voiceovers would you like to tell us for inspiration?
You mean just as far as being a voice actor and sticking with it?
Yeah, sticking with it, because there's days where I get burnt out. There's days where it's like, I some days I'll get some great lands, for some jobs, and some days it's like nothing's coming in. What would you do to keep us motivated, like something to keep us going?
That is the tricky part when you're a voice actor or an actor in general. You often hear that actors say, well, I'm waiting tables, because you can't quit your day job until you're, booking regular jobs all the time that you can pay your rent with. You really can't quit your day job. It has to be a hobby. But the most important thing is don't give up. And don't stop practicing. I don't think enough voice actors actually spend the time reading out loud constantly. And don't worry about anybody else who can hear you. Big deal if they can hear you. Don't be shy, but read out loud all the time. It doesn't matter what you're reading, a comic book, a magazine, any script that you can get your hands on. Read it out loud, record yourself, and listen back to it. Because the most important part of being a voice actor is not your voice, it's your ear. Are you hearing it the right way? Are you recording it the right way? Do you understand the words that you're saying when you record? So you're convincing. And so it doesn't sound like you're reading a script. It sounds like you are the character in that script. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Just keep at it every day and don't give up.
That is awesome advice. I started reading books. I never liked reading books. And I have felt reading books has actually helped me keep reading and reading. Because sometimes, if you haven't read for a while, I don't know if this happens to you, you'll stutter on some words. I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened to me? Did I forget how to read? But I found reading books kind of helps me. And really
be sure to follow Jon on all his social media platforms and check out his amazing cruise opportunity planned for 2022. The website link is attached in the description.
Talk to them like that character.
Thanks
to help
for listening
me
in on Behind the Audition Podcast, made possible by
that's absolutely that's what you have to do. Forget about anybody watching you, observing you from the outside. Being
let our voices do the
I don't want to say
selling.
crazy. Being out there is kind of fun, actually. Let people think whatever they want to think about you. At some point, they're going to go, wow, what a creative genius.
Wow. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show. I hope you'll come back and let us know what's going on. I like to come back and I'd like our guests to come back and tell us what's going on. You are truly one of the best. Jon St. John, Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Curt. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.